that's
Probably gonna give you a 10th per lap.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Got all the colors. All right, make sure my sound. I'm just gonna turn this engine down a little bit too. It usually ends up being way louder than my voice, cause
Yeah, I generally suggest to have the engines very low and the tires and crashes very high.
Oh,
Also, crashes help you. They help you figure out when you're bottoming out, when you attack a curb a little bit too much, and when you. So it's always super useful. I would leave tires and crashes on -0, like on the maximum.
Yeah,
Best
tires I
information you
usually
can have.
do. I didn't know that the crashes had that kind of information in them. I just
Yeah,
was
I've seen
like,
some of
crashes.
the.
I don't wanna hurt my ears when I run into something.
No, it's not. It's not too loud. It's just good information, clear information.
Let's see if that works.
All right.
That'll work. All right, and I think everything should be set. I'm not gonna mess with anything else.
So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna be quiet for 4, 5, 6 laps, maybe even more, because we want to warm up the tires in this car and everything. And then we're gonna take a break, and we're gonna talk about the notes.
All right, sounds good. I'll see if I can remember the track enough to drive it for that.
No worries. Have fun. And it's crazy to think that you can do that flat out at the end of the stint.
Yeah, I know. I watched somebody do it, and I was like, okay, but I didn't realize the apex was actually later than that. It's like almost a half double apex.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, yeah, exactly. It's a half double apex. It's a triple apex.
Yeah, exactly.
That curve is a no-go.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's just like getting it in there and braking at the right time. That's like this whole track is just like, are you going to break a straight line or are you not going to break a straight line? Good luck. Hopefully I get a lap where I remember where every corner is and which one's not flat out. There it is.
Nice.
That corner.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Great when you get it right. Yeah.
Yeah, you see how this corner always tricks you into into going wide at the exit?
Yeah.
That's because you're apexing a tiny bit too early.
Okay.
Try to touch the inside curb one car later than you're doing. So
Okay.
turn in later, and then keep churning. The apex will be a little bit later than you think.
Gotcha.
If you do that, just like positioning the car a tiny bit forward will set you for a perfect exit.
So I guess the healing mode. I'm wondering if it doesn't. If I've screwed the car up by running it over the curb so many times, or running it into the grass as many times as I have.
If it's bad?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell. I can never tell with like arrow cars when you go over the.
No, it's fine. You can like just abuse these tires. It's always gonna be good.
Yeah, there's a lot of these like just late apex breaking at it. It seems to be a weird point.
This it's flat out actually. This one,
Okay, yeah.
left-hander. This too. Just kidding.
Right. Right into the wall.
This one you can use all the exit. You can actually go 4 tires away from the curb. It's not grass. It's like
It's like compact.
drivable. Yeah, exactly.
Not the straight line there.
Yeah. So this is tricky. Let's do it like that. I'm gonna be talking while we practice since we're kind of learning the track.
Yes, exactly.
For this corner, you have the fast left and slow right, right?
Yeah.
So what we want to do is on the fast left, we want to only think about having the car as much as possible to the left before we start turning into the right. So think as if you don't want to go fast on the left-hander. You want to go fast on the right-hander.
Yeah.
By having the turning point should be as close as possible to the left limit on the before you turn. Because what you're doing is you're carrying a lot of speed on the left-hander, but your car is finding itself on the middle of the track before you start turning into this lower corner.
Yeah.
But that slower corner will really require that you have your car a lot more to the left if you want to find a good exit and good speed.
Gotcha.
That could be worth 3/10, really, if you bring the car probably 2 cars to the left.
Okay. All
It's
right.
tricky.
Yeah.
And,
So that would be 2
um,
cars to the. So we basically would apex it just a slight bit later, as in like, and that would allow us to bring it further left when we brake to turn in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also, don't worry about. There's no such thing as should I brake turning or should I brake on a straight line. I mean, yes, there is, but you're turning. You have to brake what you're turning.
Yeah.
So you don't want to unturn, brake very hard on a straight line, and then start turning again. You want to transition. So you want to start braking, and this is one of the few exceptions where we initiate the brake slowly. What you want to do is you want to initiate the brakes as you unwind the wheel. So it's a transition. Yeah. Oh my god. So you definitely don't think like on off. Think as if it was a transition. This way you're not really gonna brake on a straight line because you're gonna brake while transitioning. Yes, we're gonna get to a peak where you are almost changing direction to the other side. But I don't know if you got the idea. It's just like we don't
Yeah.
transition too fast. Let me share my screen real quick so I can
Yeah.
show you what I'm talking about.
Go back to the pit so I can.
Yeah, let me see if this works. Okay, this works. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open Paint here. Let me know if you can see this.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so we start turning, right? We're turning to the other side. We apex. Now, we want to brake for the second for the right-hander. What you're thinking about doing is going very quickly to a straight line, then braking, right?
Yep.
And then doing the normal turning again. Actually, it would be to the other side, so it would be something like that. Instead of doing that, let's try to do this. You see, we're still doing the same transition, but it's inverted. So you're decreasing the steering and increasing the brakes slowly. Normally, we want to punch the brakes like that. This time, we're gonna be doing this because we're going down with the steering. So we're transitioning, and then we go back to the normal brake release and turning the steering like that to the other side.
Right.
But you see, look at this. This is funny because you don't have a straight line here. We get the peak where we are almost going on a straight line, but for a fraction of a second, because we're not actually stopping there, we are already turning to the other side. Of course, realistically, what we do is not perfect like that. It's very, very, very difficult to do it like that. What we do is we kind of do a little bit of both, where we increase and then we kind of stay a little bit on a straight line just to make sure we are stopping the car and getting like ready for the corner, and then we start releasing the brakes. I have a good example here. Let me go to my lap at Montreal. Let's be playing piano at Montreal. That's not the what I want. Formula
Still
3 at
impressive.
Montreal. Okay. Okay, so let's see here.
Yep.
Brake, release. Did you just see that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back again and let's go to 0.05 speed, and you're gonna see exactly what I drew there. So, here it's a normal release, but then as I go to the other corner, I don't have time to be on a straight line for too long here. So I go back as I increase. You see?
Yeah, and as the wheel
I go
straightens
back
out, yeah.
as I increase, but then I keep turning to the other side. Look, I don't stop.
Mhm.
And then the peak was here. Remember the peak braking, because at
Yep,
this
right there.
fraction of time I'm not turning. But then as I start turning to the other side, my brakes go down. So you see, it's a very... This time I was really proud of this transition here, because I didn't need to be in a straight line for any time. This was a perfect corner.
Right.
And then I just got on the... So that's the idea. You want to do that. You're turning to one side, and you transition, and then you transition back to turning.
Yep.
Room. Now you keep churning. It's a little bit tricky. Let's see what I did at Snetterton, because Snetterton is more difficult than this, because there are some bumps there. The car bottoms out on the inside, so it's a little bit more complicated. Possibly this was not perfect. Let's see what I did here. We even have the telemetry on this video.
Perfect. It's also the first corner is just super fast. Yep.
Oh yeah, I did the same
Yep.
thing.
Yep,
I did
exactly
the same thing.
Yep.
And you see how much to the left I am,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know that this corner will be perfect when you carry enough speed on entry, of course, but also when you're able to smash the throttle
Mhm.
at the apex and put yourself here on
Yeah.
the limit, on the very limit of the off
Literally
track.
the whole track. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have to wait and not get back in the throttle at this point, then something's wrong. It's not perfect.
All right. Oh, all right.
Okay, so let me talk about some things here. Since we're already here, I'm
Yeah.
gonna show my lap and I'm gonna compare to what you're doing. Let's see the first corner and everything. Let me go to... Try to increase this a little bit. No. Okay, something like this.
Yeah. Works.
Okay, so some things here. What I really aim for is hitting the curb very early. I don't know if you saw it, but I churn in
Mhm.
quite quickly. In a corner like that, on a Formula car, you're still on the throttle. You don't need to be too gentle on the initial churn in. We only churn the wheels slow if we are releasing the brakes and we need that transition. But if we are already flat out, boop, you can just very quickly churn. You can watch any Formula 1 in real life on board.
Yeah.
You're gonna see that in fast corners, they doop, 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 because the timing of churning in is more important than slowly loading. If you're slowly loading, you're under the limit on the very first
That's why we
3/10.
have aerodynamics.
Exactly. So quickly loads, boom. Then I do touch a lot this first curb. There is a banked part on this curb here, but I don't really use it. Maybe you could try being a little bit more aggressive, but I think it's just gonna make the car bottom out and go wide. So what I do is I touch the first part, then I'm very patient on the steering. One very important thing is it's about patience and trust, because if you're not trusting the car, if you don't trust the line, you will want to turn a little bit more. When you turn a tiny bit more, you get into understeer, you start scrubbing the fronts, you overheat the fronts, they get less grip, and you go out. So it's like if you try just enough, it's gonna turn more than if you try more. If you try too much and under shear, the car pushes wide, loses top speed. It's bad. So patience, 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 and then boom. Trust that the car will go all the way there. You want to in all laps touch the grass because if you don't do that, you're not on the very limit. This one, I think you're doing well. It feels like you can use a tiny bit more brakes. You're not on the. I want you to feel as if this was a kart, a go-kart, and you're really feeling the rear wanting to step out. Maybe if you try that on the baseline setup without changing the brake pads or anything, it's gonna lock the fronts. As soon as it locks the fronts, boom, brake pads down a little bit, and then you try again. You want this car to be always slightly oversteery.
Yeah.
Then here you're gonna see how late I turn and how late you see the apex is.
Yeah,
I'm actually not. I'm actually.
Apexes that take me a while to just get used to.
Also, this one I very late apexed, and this is flat out. So
Okay.
same quick turning. You see, don't be afraid of the bollard here.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. You can go through it.
Beautiful.
There's no collision. And also here, make sure you put the antenna at the very right edge of the curb. A little bit more than that, you gotta slow down. A little bit less than that, you lose half a tenth.
Okay.
So you have to really be on the very limit there. Then also don't be afraid of using this little dirt here. And then just stay there, you see? So I go back a little bit, but I'm really still touching the white line at this point. Because I want to have the best positioning to turn in. And look at how funny this is. Like, looking at the image right now, it feels like I'm on the grass, but I'm not. I'm not. My tire is touching the white line. There's always this extra room you can go because you don't see exactly where the tire is touching. So don't be afraid of trying a little bit more. You want to go to the very, very, very limit.
Yeah, every centimeter.
And here you can see how much I'm using.
Okay, yeah.
So then we have this same corner we were talking about, staying a lot on the inside. You want to really go, you see? I'm not touching the bollards. It feels like I am, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. The car will kind of bottom out a little bit here. There's a hole here. So it's a little bit tricky. And then you still want to stay. You see, after the curb ends, there is this net. I don't know how we call that. You still want to kind of use it. Ideally, we will probably use it a little bit. I kind of missed here, but it was fast still.
Yep.
Because I was on the very limit on entry anyways. So they should be flat out. On cold tires, it's also flat out, but you just need to make sure that... you know what a compression and crests are? Like compression is when the car goes up, and a crest, compression or dip.
Yeah.
And the crest is when you're falling away. So here we have a compression on entry.
Yep.
And right after that, right here, like boom, here, this is a crest already.
Yeah.
So what happens is, on cold tires, the car, if you're not aware of it, you're gonna churn. Now compression, boom, we get a lot of rotation, but with that rotation, we are still carrying that rotation.
Yep.
When the car goes over the crest, that rotation becomes dangerous and you can just lose the rear.
Yeah.
So make sure you get a lot of rotation, but as soon as the car goes on the crest, I call this light hands technique.
Yeah.
Like just lighten up your hands, allow the force feedback to correct it to you.
Yep.
For you. Boom. And then you can gently go there.
Yeah, we'll have to see
There's
how
also...
that works on a G27.
Okay. yeah. This should be very light hands.
To add to it on this wheel. So we'll see.
And then here, same thing. When you start braking, light hands. Otherwise, you're gonna oversteer to the right. You're always doing that. Like when you start braking, you're still pushing the car to the right. You don't need to. The car is gonna gently want to take you to the right because you are putting some weight in the fronts. So every time you start braking and you're churning, lighten up your hands or just deliberately bring the wheel a little bit back because the car is going to always oversteer. If you oversteer to the right here, you're gonna overheat the tires, and by the time you turn to the left, you already have a little bit less grip.
Yep.
So we want to be very gentle here, and then when we want to turn to this corner, we'll have the grip that we need.
Right. Yep.
I'm using, as you can see, the bollards as a timing for many stops. So I start braking at the second very lightly, and I turn in right before the last one.
Okay. Yeah, it was mostly the braking, because I know it's flat out, and I can just never... I had picked out which bollard I needed to start braking at first.
Yeah, exactly. The first one is flat out, I think. So one, then start lifting, braking, and then turning the last one.
Yeah, basically.
So it's like on the second, a little bit after the second, you should be already braking a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to try these things?
Yeah.
Remember that I still want you to not be under the limit when you're turning. Try to get the car to really rotate. Don't be afraid. I want to see your car sliding the rear on entry.
Right.
Entry is very difficult to if you have the control to really all the time slide the rears on entry.
Yep.
Then you're gonna be able to really find the limit at all times because on exit it's easier.
Okay.
Okay.
I think... There's the cold tires. Hello. I had a really bad one at Olden Park where I lit the rear tires on the grid, and when the green went out, I was like, "Oh, I caught it!" And then I immediately lost the car again and took out two people. And I feel really, really awful about that.
Oh yeah, the temperature. When you lose the rear on cold tires, the
That's
tendency to lose it
immediate.
again is just like immediate. Just because you overheat the tire, it takes some time until the temperature goes back to the inside of the tire.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah, remember on cold tires, you almost even have to brake here.
Yeah, that's insane. That it's just so much different. So is it like 2 or 3 laps for tires? Because it seems to be obviously different in every car.
For this car, it's 10.
Oh my god.
Maybe 15, 20. Every lap is a little bit faster.
Okay. Yeah, because some of them they'll end up being that much better on like 2 or 3 laps, and then it's kind of stays the same or falls off. But yeah, I think that's the other thing I struggle with. It's just like knowing when the tires have come in and when they haven't come in.
Yeah, what you can do is many 5-lap runs.
Okay.
So you do 5 laps, you compare the lap times, then you go back, you do 5 laps, you compare the lap times. Because this way you can figure out ways to be fast on cold tires. It's very important for the races because everyone is going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens here again? It felt like what is the brake bias you have right now?
It's sort of a fixed 55.5.
Oh, that's interesting. Like because with the sound of the engine, you locked up a little bit the rears on entry, and that's interesting with this car. Whenever you feel, you have to do 1,000 laps to always identify when you're locking the rears. But
Mm-hmm.
when you identify that you're locking the rears, the exit is also going to be affected because of the same reason we talked about before. The
Tires.
temperature goes up a lot, and it will only go down if you get a straight, like maybe 5 seconds to 10 seconds going in a straight line. That will cool down the tires. But on the same corner, if you slide on entry, the end that you did slide will also slide on the exit. So if you understeer on entry, you're gonna understeer on the exit. If you oversteer on entry, you're gonna oversteer on the exit. You have to always have this dynamic response to the car, especially on cold tires. On hot tires, this gets very subtle, and it's still there, but
It's more of
not
a
that
point and
much.
shoot kind of with
Yeah.
with warm tires. Yeah.
On cold tires, you have to read. You have to always feel what you're doing on entry, and then determine from that what you're gonna do on exit. That's why most people lose the rear on this car on the first laps, because they slide a little bit on entry, the rears, and they just push as hard for the exit, and that's where you spin. It generally tells you when it's going to spin, but people don't really identify that because it's pretty quick, like the way the temperatures build up on cold tires.
It is. Yeah. That makes sense now. It doesn't make sense when you're like, I have no idea, and then you go, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Because that's exactly what it does. It's just like, oh yeah, it's fine, and then yeah, there's just a little slide, and then you get on it like you normally would, and it just doesn't respond at all, pretty much.
Yeah, almost always it tells you a little bit, like for half a second it's telling you, I'm going to slide.
Right.
Be careful, you're a little bit under the limit when turning to the left. You're not really turning, you can turn more the steering. A lot better control here when going to the left. Sorry, to the right.
Hold on to that, is it? Unless I'm not turning it enough, which is entirely possible.
And also remember, if you just try, it doesn't churn, and you keep churning, you're just burning and burning and burning and burning the fronts. So it turns less and less and less.
Yep.
That's the thing with cold tires. The same effect that makes everyone spin affects also the front. So, for example, on cold tires, if you have the tendency of churning too much the steering, you're gonna say, this car is super understeery on cold tires. And others will say, no, it's super oversteery on cold tires.
Yeah.
But it really depends on how you abuse them.
Yeah.
If you do abuse the fronts a lot by churning too much, then you're gonna say it's understeery.
Yeah,
In your
which I try
case,
not
it's
to do.
understeery in high-speed corners, because
Yeah.
in high-speed corners you tend to turn too much. On medium-speed corners, you use the fronts optimally, but then you snap the rears.
Yep. Speaking to my soul.
So when you got back on the throttle here,
Yep.
remember the idea is to try to get back on the throttle at the apex, at the curb.
Okay.
That's always the diagnostic of the corner. So you see where you got back on the throttle, and then that feedback you're gonna use on the next lap to try something different when it doesn't work.
I feel like I've abused the tires so much, I don't feel like where they should be, but try to get a clean lap in.
Your homework will be definitely the. I want you to absorb this behavior, the
Yeah.
dynamic of the tire surface temperature.
Yeah.
If you really absorb that on the Formula 3 and you apply it and you really do good cold tire laps and good hot tire laps, you can then export this technique to every other car where things will be a lot more subtle. The thing is that these things still exist on the other cars, and people don't know it because they are a lot more forgiving. So
Yeah.
that's the gift that you get from driving the Formula 3 on cold tires. If you learn how to deal, how to be fast on cold tires, you're gonna be fast in any car.
Yeah. I again love practice. I'm all about it.
Because there's one thing with mindset now. Now talking about mindset, everything that's difficult here for you, it's gonna be as difficult for everyone else. Cold tires, not excuse. Setup, not excuse.
Yep.
Curves, bouncing on bumps, anything that's weird that happens will happen to everyone. So deal with it. Like, drive 5 laps on cold tires. If you spin, go down, go back to the replay and see, okay, here I forced it. If you spun there and you do the same thing, it's gonna spin the same way.
Yep.
So let's try to develop this really, really strong technique for cold tires. That's gonna translate amazingly to hot tires.
Yeah.
You won't
Yeah.
believe how fast you can be if you learn how to not abuse either end. If you abuse the front, understeer like crazy. If you abuse the rear, you spin. If you don't abuse, if you really find the perfect slip angle where you're not building too much temperature, and you're able to do a good qualifying run, like qualifying is just that. It's how quick are you on cold tires?
Yeah.
And you see that something's funny. Most people who qualify in the front, they stay in the front on hot tires as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh my god, I'm very bad on cold tires, but I'm great on hot tires. There's people who say that, but it's not optimal. If you're good on cold tires, you're gonna be probably better than them on hot tires as well. So focus on that. That's
Got
your
it.
homework.